So let's see if I'm live. Let me check my own
Yep,
channel.
your live stream.
I am.
Yep.
We are live.
We're like,
Yes.
yeah, take it away. So let me check the. Let me do a thumbnail. Start saying something.
I don't even know what we're talking about tonight. Alex, did he prep you on what we're talking about?
He just gave me kind of a quick synopsis. I think we're just gonna bounce ideas off of each other. I'm probably gonna say a few things that's, I guess, controversial, or just kind of how I feel the industry is. I kind of saw your State of the Union, which kind of leaned into this. I saw your State of the Union. I probably watched it a couple times and kind of.
I haven't released the most salacious part of it, so don't worry about anything saying anything controversial with me and that knucklehead right over there.
No, it's not going to be you. It's probably going to be the community. I probably will hit a nerve in the community because I've been around for so long, and I was telling Alex this. I've been around. I mean, probably 2008, 2007 in the kayak industry. I remember when what's it called, the Heritage, I think it was, the Red. Well, what other kayak? The Evolve, all these other kayaks that are non-existent at this stage right now, and then they're relics at this stage. And these were the obviously with the Hoagies involved as well too. They were the Mercedes of the kayak industry, and everything else was followed in the Cadillacs and everything else. But we've evolved into something else. All these companies have grown and sprouted roots in the industry, and it was good for a while. And I think things were going in the right direction. And like I said, just to reiterate, I saw your State of the Union, and it kind of hit a nerve because I agreed with mostly everything you had to say. I mean, it was spot on. I think this is what a lot of things were going on in the industry, plus a few other things that I see from my ends, because you're more involved.
Right, hold that thought. Let's start this right, because I couldn't do a thumbnail. But anyways, hey guys, we got like 12 people watching already, so it's great. We have a cool one for you guys today. We have two legends here on the stage. We got Chad Hoover. Everybody knows Chad Hoover. And we got Alex Tejeda, which is a local guy right here in Florida. He catches a lot of fish, only posts 1% of the fish he catches on Instagram. And I wanted to set this up because Chad has some great idea about kayaks, and Alex, I don't know, he's still working on the perfect kayak. So I wanted to get these two together and kind of like bounce ideas of what makes the best kayak out there, and what will be the future of kayaking. What a kayak in a few years gonna look like. I want that to be discussed in this live stream. And who wants? Okay, so Chad, let me ask you a question. What is your perfect kayak? If you have all the money, all the power right now, build it up. And I want Alex to kind of take it apart.
So I don't know that I should do this, but I always do everything that I shouldn't. I am a big fan of Bonafide Kayaks, right? And I've been with them since, not a lot of people say I've been with them from the start. I was with them before the start. Like, I was there helping put the oven in, right? I was in there before it was even a business. And so we brought together some really good minds with kayak fishing, with Luther from Yak Attack, and Hans and Kelly Woolsey, who had been in the industry for 25 years, and a couple of manufacturing experts, and then myself and a couple of other, people that I invited into the group that are very good kayak anglers and have a job similar to mine where they worked in aviation before, so they understand fluid dynamics and hydrodynamics and things like that, so we could do the best boat. But the position we were in is we had to build a boat that would sell, because Luther was putting a lot on the line with that product line. So you start doing this whole thing of, can we change the industry in one product launch? And the answer to that is no. And so what's happened is, incrementally, we've been able to convince Big Adventures, the parent company of Bonafide that also owns Native and Liquid Logic, and used to own Heritage, that Alex talked about before we went live. And we're getting more and more towards that perfect kayak in my mind. The Power 129 is as close as you can get to what's on the market now. but I want to talk about there is a perfect kayak design for me. This doesn't mean it's the perfect kayak design, but for me, and I've already designed this boat, just like I've designed kayaks before that took 6 or 8 years to make it to the industry. I feel like when this boat makes it to the industry, it's either going to be a personal brand of mine, or it's going to be a boat that's built in a partnership with Big Adventures and Bonafide. I've already met with the leadership there, and it's a couple of years away at a minimum. But it's a modular kayak where the front and the back of the boat are the same part, and then the middle cockpit is a separate part. What that does, it allows you to ship that boat freight instead of having to ship it, on an 18-wheeler. It allows you, if you have a damaged portion of the hull, instead of having to replace the entire hull, you can replace a section of it. And I call the front of the boat the bow and the back of the boat the stern, but they're literally the exact same part. So it's called the BS, which stands for bow stern. And the reason for that is it's going to allow that boat to plane. And I did this little sketch when you told me you wanted to talk about this, so I could explain what we have going on in kayak fishing right now. So this is your standard kayak. It's a displacement hull, not a planing hull. So as the motor starts to go forward, it sucks the back of the boat down. This little area that I sketched right here is the area that creates extra wetted surface, meaning you got now more, covered area. And that wetted surface creates friction. There's two, or what we call drag, right? In the technical side of it. So I drew this kind of position indicator for where we position our angler historically. Then you put your gear and all your other stuff back here, and then you've got your motor. So basically, in the back third of your boat, you have 85% of your payload or your weight. So what really needs to start happening is the angler position needs to come forward a little bit, kind of like a center console boat. And we worked that out quite a bit with the Power 129, or Hans did. And so the angler needs to come forward a little bit so that this boat can level out a little bit more. Because the other reason is that not only do you have this additional wetted surface here, but your tank well tends to flood, so you create more volume. And then on top of that, the prop, if you notice this angle right here, these action lines, your prop is actually now running uphill. Instead of running through the water straight, it's running at an uphill angle, which actually compounds the parasitic drag on the top of the prop, creates a bunch of cavitation. So I can't tell you how many times I go fishing with an angler and I go, hey, does your motor have a throttle? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, does it tell you your speed? Yes. Does it tell you your wattage? Yes. Okay. Start back all the way down and start speeding up with your motor until your wattage increases, but your speed doesn't. In other words, the amount of power it's taking to go that speed, but no more speed is happening. And too many anglers gun it, and then it sucks the back end of the boat down, and you're burying the back of the boat, which is bringing that coefficient of friction further up the boat, creating more drag. You got this big, wave behind you, which is also creating a wave. If you've ever seen an 18-wheeler on the road where they got those doors that open up on the back, it's to get rid of that air bubble behind a 18-wheeler, just like I'm talking about getting away from the motor. So a couple of things need to happen. One, we need to move more towards a displacement hull where the boat's more volume throughout the hull. We need to move the angler slightly forward. We need to have this angle right here be variable, and we need to move the motor a little bit further away from the boat. All of those things are things that are just common in boat designs. Most flats boats have a jack plate. We are going to have jack plates on kayaks relatively soon. And the reason that I know that is because I'm going to do it, right? We're going to have trim modules where you can trim the motor in and out. You should have the motor further away from the boat. You get going, it sucks the back end down. You trim the motor forward towards the boat, and it planes it out. So when we get to the point where we have variable trim, we have variable, setback, we have the ability to have a more planing hull and then put that prop running at the proper angle of attack instead of running uphill or inefficiently. Imagine if the airplane prop on the front of the aircraft was tilted like this, but it was trying to fly level. It just wouldn't work. But we do that in kayak fishing because we don't think of it as efficiently as we should. We're just slapping a motor on the back of a boat. So you and I, Alex, have talked about this off the record or just personally. I firmly believe that motors are going to become more and more prevalent. I think that integrated design is going to become more and more prevalent. And I think that we also are going to make a big swing back to paddlecraft. So what does that mean? Does that mean the market's going to double? No. What I think is going to happen is the needle's going to move from pedal more to motor and from pedal more to paddle. And it's going to leave a big gap where I don't see pedal drives being as prevalent in 5 years as they are now. Because if boat design gets better and motor integration gets better, then we're going to get to the point where, we're going to be able to do a lot more with it. I work with both Torqeedo, and I recently started working with and talking to Newport Vessels because one of them has a low torque, high torque, low efficiency prop. The other one has a low torque, high efficiency prop. Well, we really should have the ability to change the props out on these boats, right? If I'm fishing a bass fishing scenario where I'm cruising down a shoreline, I should have a prop that's low efficiency but high torque, meaning I don't have to put a lot of power on to get that thing crawling real slow and push my boat. If I'm going offshore or if I'm fishing inshore, chasing redfish and tarpon and things like that, I don't care about cruising along real slow. I want to be able to cover water because for the most part, when I get in the vicinity of the fish, I'm shutting my motor down anyway and just fishing. So, and then, I think I should be able to dream a little dream, but I think down the road, a variable pitch prop is very likely in kayak fishing. And when we get to the point where we've got a variable pitch prop and trim, it's going to be a quantum leap in range, efficiency, and all of those things, because now what's going to happen is you're going to be able to put that prop into a high torque scenario to get the boat going. And then once you break over and you're running, you can both trim the motor forward and trim the prop. And bro, you're talking about 100-mile ranges in kayaks with electric motors is right around the corner.
All right. So
it's just gonna be hard to counteract because it's pretty much my argument. I've basically been saying this for about 2 or 3 years. I think pedal is a thing of the past. I think Hobie revolutionized it. They made their foot in the market. They're it. Everybody else kind of followed suit. Drives are all right. They're good. I've pedaled just about from Alibaba to Native to just about everybody, even the new canoes pedal system. I think I've been with Torqeedo now. I want to say I've been with them for a year or two as a team, but I've been having a Torqeedo for the last 7 years, and I've been saying it that Torqeedo is going to revolutionize. Let's just put Torqeedo the name and any other, just ball them all together. The motor industry is evolving, and I think the batteries are going to keep evolving. And just like you said, I think the kayak hulls play a huge difference in here, and I think pedal drives are a thing of the past. I think, like you said, it's going to be two very distinct paddle and power, and in the middle, it's just going to be obsolete. You're still going to have the diehards that use the pedal system because it falls into the nature of it. But honestly, I think the industry it's moving forward. And I think companies need to evolve and need to embrace it. They just need to give up and say, all right, we have a pedal system. It's okay, but we need to develop a boat, a vessel that is built around the motor. I still haven't seen a company go 100%, I mean full throttle, and build a boat, a kayak that's just built around the motor. And then just
the Power 129 from Bonafide, that's what happened. That boat was built around motors, meaning it was built around the ability to power it from the stern and power it from the bow. So there were certain compromises that needed to be made to accommodate both, right? But I do think it was the first boat, like from the ground up, that was built for that concept. Now, you got to give credit where credit's due with the autopilot and, some of the stuff that you talked about before, Native with the Volt. doing the motor installed in a big oversized scupper in the center of the boat, and some of those things were.
You have the Evolve as well too from Jackson as well too.
Yeah, with the Forerunners to all of that. But
yeah,
what they didn't do though is they didn't accommodate the motor performance in the design. And I think that's what happened with the Power 129 is Hans did a really good job of moving that angular position to where you still got plenty of boat behind you, so that and I did a bunch of YouTube or Instagram shorts for this when I got to test it, and I'm going to be releasing those over the next couple of weeks. But when I gun it with that boat, it doesn't squat, and it doesn't, and I'm actually going to go out and do some videos with like levels mounted on my boat and show that when I gun it, I'm going to have the camera on it and show what it does to the attitude and that kind of thing, and talk about speed, performance, doing little things like put the battery in the back of the boat for like the Newport vessel, run it, and put the battery at the front of the boat and show the difference in speed and efficiency. I'm going to compare the 1103 to the NK300. Then I'm going to compare the 1103 and the NK300 to a bow mount, both the XI3, the XI5, and also maybe even like a Riptide or some boat, just to see if we just go crazy and overpower it, what it does. But I'm going to back up a little bit, because I don't believe that pedal drives are a thing of the past. I don't think that they're going to be obsolete. What I think is going to happen is that pedal drive thing is going to stagnate a bit and level out, and it'll still be there, and it'll still be a staple. It just won't continue.
I'm with you on that part. I think it'll be a staple.
It just won't to continue to innovate. In fact, I'll be honest with you, man. I think that Hobie almost tried to lap themselves. In other words, they were the number one brand, the most innovative, and all that stuff. And then I honestly think that I personally like a motor, a pedal drive like Native makes, and like the ones that Old Town make and the one that Jackson's makes more, just because I don't have to stop and reach down and do anything to go in reverse. Sure. And I like bulletproof. I like, I don't like little chintzy stuff that if it's going to break on me. And I think that, I bought a Hobie. Didn't like get it free from them. I bought it at Fish USA through my partnership with them. I took it down to Florida. I gave it a varsity go. It was really hard to get into some of the places that I loved, the kind of stuff that I love to fish. And it didn't provide the additional value proposition for me from the standpoint of what I was getting for how much more I would have had to spend to get that. And then I had like numerous malfunctions of little nitpicky things like the belt in the drive and some of that other stuff. And I honestly think that they should just stick with almost go back 2 iterations ago, right? Maybe the MDA 180, where you've got the reverse if you need it, like if you just want to stay in reverse. And listen, when you're in the 360, it's a dream if everything's working. What sucks is when it breaks, not only does it break, but it breaks stuck in the boat. So when mine broke, it broke in like Kissimmee grass in Florida, and I had to like get out of the boat to get the pedal drive straightened out, to get it back out of the hole, to be able to continue on. And it was just, like, holy crap, the average angler not going to do this, Oh,
I have to agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't run Hobies for my charter business. It's a main staple because of it. Because of all these issues that you just finished telling. The drives have an easy route for these drives to break, especially stuff that I fish here down in South Florida. I mean, the bottom's unforgiving. You come at it at full tilt, even with the fins tucked up, and either you're gonna break a hole or you're gonna rip the drives apart. I've done it. I've broken drives.
Guys, give me a second. We have a boat Esper here, but he's not Esper at YouTube. Mute the YouTube live stream, Alfred.
Am I muted right now or no?
Now you're good, but you had that live stream playing, so there was an echo.
So from the
from YouTube.
Oh, let me turn that off. Sorry about that, guys.
Bro, you're making me look like a rookie, man.
Well, I'm interested watching. I'm listening to the conversation, and I'm saying, at what point do you guys just buy a boat? Right? That's
Never.
what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
like if you want to get rid of the pedal, right, and you think the pedal kayak is dying, at that point, why don't you just buy a boat?
Well,
get
let
a
me
small boat.
let me answer that question since you asked it. Never, because we don't do this because of price or this or that. That's like going to a bow hunter and saying, "Why don't you just buy a rifle?" Because we're bow hunters and because we're kayak fishermen, and that's how we like to do it. And the number one answer that I say to boat people that say that is say, "How about we just go fishing and play follow the leader, and then when you stop, I'll show you how much further I go, and then you ask me that question again." So I don't. It's not about price. It's about access and innovation. And you know what I'm saying? Like I can store that kayak, I can transport that kayak, and I can get that kayak into places you can't get a boat. So the answer to that question is it's comparing, apples to sheep.
I think. Am I still muted or no? Can you guys
No,
hear me
no,
fine?
you're
No, we hear you.
Is my background still working? Or I'm good?
No,
Did that come off?
you're good.
So
There's an echo. There is an echo.
where's the echo coming from? That's what I'm.
Actually,
Now
it's
Is it the computer?
Now it's you, Alex.
It's me.
Yep.
Okay. So.
No, it's not me. It's Alfred. That he has the live stream in the background.
But I turned it off. Hold on a second. Let me
You're
make
good,
sure.
Alfred.
Okay. So I'm looking at this like. I would love to be in the kayak scenario more, but I think personally what I enjoy about the kayak scenario is the fact that I can go into places as quiet as possible without using a motor. That's why I would use a kayak. So when you guys say pedal is dead or it's not going to be available, I disagree. I think that I would rather have something that I can depend on being myself fully, right? That I power with my own legs, and I paddle with my own arms and whatnot. I think where you guys as I've seen it, because what I've seen is that there's been a lot of technology that has accommodated kayakers to get to the point where you're almost at a level of having a small boat. And then what happens is sometimes people end up getting that itch to get a small boat, and then they're like, ooh, this is very different from the kayak part. But I think it robs one from the other. Like you want to have, the way you can go out 20 miles and at the same time be as stealth and as light as possible. And the reality is if you go 20 miles out offshore and you get some pretty nasty weather, you're gonna be in a scenario. On a small boat, same thing. But I don't think the pedal kayak, or I don't think any drive that you can power yourself is gonna go away. I'm a big fan of the technology as far as what batteries are doing. I think batteries are gonna get lighter, and they're just gonna give you much more range to give you that flexibility. But I think the ultimate backup is always gonna be you, especially when you are on something like a small kayak. That's just my opinion on that end.
You're not going to get me to disagree on that. That's why I'm more of a paddle guy. And even the motorized boats that I use, they have to be able to be paddled. That was the other thing that I didn't really like about the Pro Angler that I bought was if the pedal drive broke,
It's terrible to paddle.
Thing back. And I will tell you that I've been in the motor game since the beginning. I was literally one of the first people to put motors on the boat. And honestly, even when I was doing it, I wasn't so much doing it for myself. I was trying to do it so that it would be available for like handicapped folks and veterans and people that really needed it. And I saw that we had gotten into kayak fishing. There was a bunch of us pioneers that when we all got into it, we were like in our early 20s. Now we're all 50, right? And so we're getting into that window of those pioneers are all about to be old ass people. And if we don't create these other modalities, it's going to be difficult for us to be able to do that.
It already
But
is difficult.
I've actually had more pedal drive failures than motor failures. My motor's more reliable than my pedal drive. In fact, not this past season because I didn't travel as much because of the divorce, but the season before that, I was at all of my events, and every single event, somebody called me that their pedal drive was broken and they couldn't paddle the boat back, and I had to run out with my motor and tow them back to the boat ramp. But for me, I like the boat that you can still paddle, and I like to paddle, and I paddle a lot. In fact, I haven't used my motor in probably 2.5 months. I've been mostly paddling. And I think that everybody that gets into kayak fishing should still have that element of it. And I do see that pendulum swinging to where there's so many people in kayak fishing that to them, they stick their paddle in the back of the boat, taken in 2 parts, and they never even put it together. I think that's batshit crazy, to be honest with you. Like that's, even if I'm using a motor or a pedal drive, I still have my paddle like right there where I can grab it and make a quick, adjustment if I need to. And like we talked about before, I totally agree that the pedal drive is not going to go away. I just think that the pendulum's going to swing more towards real bulletproof, reliable pedal drives. And here's what I'll tell you. I firmly believe, and I'm pushing for it, and I'm even like kind of duking it out with like Big Adventures who I work with. Sell the boat without the pedal drive. That way that angler that wants that platform, that loves that platform, that wants to throw a trolling motor on it or a steer mount motor on it, can buy that boat at a lower price point and then ultimately say, dang, it would be nice to have the pedals for when I'm doing this, this, or this, and then they can add the pedals after the fact. Or if they're going to buy the boat and put a motor on it and they don't want the pedals, they just want to paddle and motor, that same platform's still available, without the pedal drive. And
sorry to interrupt you. I want Alex to answer the question. Sorry to forget the question. Alex. Alfred asked, why not get a boat? I mean,
the reason why, and I mean, I run the skiffs as well too, and I get the skiff, but honestly, the reason behind the engine and why I'm comfortable with the engine, it's revolutionized the way I fish. I still like to paddle, and I pull more than I even use the motor. Ask Alex how much. I mean, we were out on Tuesday. How much did I was standing up push pulling the flats 90% of the day. That's just my method of motoring. I push pull. I'm in less than a foot of water, looking for bonefish, tarpon, permit, 3 feet of water. I mean, I use the paddle a lot. So that's why I'm not saying that the pedal drive is just going to go extinct. It's not a meteor coming and just going to evaporate the pedal drive. I think they'll still be around, but I don't think they're going to be as prevalent as I think paddling and the motor. I think the motor industry is taking over. And for my instance, it's a tool that I use for my guiding. I get clients that are dipping their toes into the industry. They want to check out the fishing, and unfortunately, I can't go 3 blocks down the street and go catch a couple grunts. But that's just not how I operate. Sometimes I have to travel 2-3 miles to take clients, and you get a client that is new to paddling. I want them to paddle. I want them to have a good time on the water, but I'm not going to spend 6 hours on a charter trying to teach a paddling lesson. It's a completely 2 different distinct things. Once we get to our destination, to point A, all right, motor's up, paddles are out, and then my clients start paddling, and their energy gets focused on fishing and in that direction. The motor is a tool just to get me from point A to point B, and then to allow my clients at that point, once we get to that area to point A, all right, paddle, we look for a fish.
Let me get Alfred's take on so far on what. Go ahead.
I was fortunate enough to go out with addicts, and we had a motor malfunction when we went out, right? And it's what was that, Alex?
It's your fault.
No, listen, whoever's fault it is doesn't matter. The point is that I was out there, right? And I was like the guy up Shit's Creek without a paddle, right? Like I had a paddle, whatever, we could have gone, but I still think, and I'm looking at this as a boater that would occasionally like to enjoy the kayak fishing side of it, because it's a completely different experience, right? Like going out on a boat or even a small boat and going on a kayak, completely night and day. It's almost like a deep sea fisherman versus a flats fisherman, right? Completely two different people, completely 2 capable boats. But I think I like the fact that you can still have the paddle, which is obviously like the dinosaur age, and we understand that. having that some type of drive to give you that advantage to get a little bit further faster and not get as tired, like Chad said, is you don't want. I mean, bro, I'm 46 years old. I mean, I don't want to get destroyed either,
but just
right?
so
I
you
don't want to
know,
get destroyed out there all the time.
But that comes down to the bolt as well, too. Like Chad said, if you're paddling a Hobie Pro Angler, you're going to be dead. Listen, I went down that road. I broke on a drive in Flamingo, literally in Garfield, and I had to go back to the ramp. And I paddled a Pro Angler from Garfield all the way back to the marina. Now, you sit on my boat. I mean, I had a big rig.
There's two big myths that I hear all the time. Two big myths. I can go further and I can go faster with my pedal drive. You're not going to outrun me pedaling in a kayak that's designed to paddle. I don't give a shit if you're Emmett Smith and you got quads this big around. You're just not going to do it. Secondly, you can't do it as long because quads are your biggest muscle group on your body, and they're going to build up fatigue. They're going to build up lactic acid, and they're going to fatigue you faster. And the reason that people think that is because they get into a boat that's designed to be pedaled like a big ass like Native Titan or a Pro Angler, and they pedal it, then they paddle it, and they say, oh, it pedals so much easier. Yes, that boat does. But a boat that's designed to be paddled is way more efficient and way less fatiguing than pedaling a boat that's even designed to be pedaled. And the second myth is hands-free. I literally have a video that I've been wanting to post for a few years where I play circus music and I ask people, hey, why do you like to fish in a pedal drive? Love to be able to be hands-free. And then I play circus music for 20 minutes as they're constantly reaching down and adjusting their rudder. Like, I touch my paddle once every 3 or 4 minutes. They're touching their paddle 15 or their rudder drop handle 15 or 20 times a minute. So the whole hands-free thing in a lot of cases is a big myth. And then the whole it's faster and less fatiguing is a big myth as well. The reason it is because they're comparing paddling that boat to pedaling that boat when it was designed to be pedaled. Does that make sense? And so I firmly believe that pendulum is about to swing big time back towards a lot of paddle craft that are lighter weight, grab and go, because I think older guys than me, you know, those guys that are 10 years older than me when they got into it that are now pushing 60 are just over having a trailer, a big heavy boat. They want something they can load on top of their car, and they're not interested in going 10 miles. They just want to go 2 or 3 miles. And so I feel that pendulum swinging back in that direction really, really hard. And with that boat, you can throw the motor on it if you want to and leave it at home. I have the same boat that a lot of times I'll paddle, but if I really want to cover, 10, 12, 15 miles, I'll throw the motor on it, and it's the same kayak. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just want to answer Alfred's question. I mean, one, I have a little boat, right? But it cost me $20 to go through Black Point. When I go with a kayak, it costs me nothing. I go to the same place. I could launch my kayak anywhere. I just did the entire 7 miles bridge back and forth on my kayak. I didn't have to take a boat, Mm-hmm. And my little boat, it's like I really cannot take it far away. And if you want something bigger, it's gonna cost you money, right? So that is the main reason why I choose to have a kayak instead of a proper boat. Is I could launch it anywhere, and it doesn't hurt me to have it right here not being used. If I have a $100,000 boat and I don't use it, it's gonna be painful. Go ahead.
Well, that's the fun part about kayaking. The whole exploring and looking for launches that you can cut some territory and some ground on, instead of having to launch from the regular spot and then have to paddle 4 miles, 5 miles. You start digging around neighborhoods and start figuring out little launches here or a ditch there. And like Chad said, I mean, I have the bites. I think it's the go parts of the kayak world. I love that little kayak. All my clients love it. And when I don't want to carry my Dig 2 around, and Alex can attest, that thing weighs, and it's absolutely, might as well just bring a forklift to get it out sometimes, especially when you do a grinder of a day and you're out there for a long time in the heat down here. But I love my bites. They weigh 60 something pounds. I can throw it in just about any ditch, grab a paddle and go. And I mean, I can cover ground on that boat. Give you a perfect example. I mean, I started off, one of my favorite boats to paddle was the Prowler 13. I would beat the Hobie guys offshore in Dania. I would beat them. They would take off before me. They would get a good clip on me. And little by little, I would start catching up. And that boat would just chew ground up. While everybody was exhausted, kicking all day and gasping for air, that boat was just gliding through. It was fast. And then the Cuda 14, that was a great paddle boat. I went from Flamingo.
But
I'm sure both of you guys.
Alex, there's a reason why those boats are not being sold anymore. Nobody buys them. Like we're talking about here, how we want to have a kayak that is truly a paddle kayak, but nobody buys it. So, I mean, you could have the best thing out there, but if people don't want it, they're not gonna make it.
That's going to segue to something that a black hole about that, because I think as far as the kayak industry and why those boats have become obsolete and they've kind of fizzled away is because of the influence in the industry and what was being pushed in the market. It's the influencers, and unfortunately, and this is what I say, I may hit a nerve with a few people. It's the influencers in the world and these companies that are following these influencers. And I don't want to mention names because I think they're good fishermen, but the problem is that it becomes I need this, and I want this. And the companies build these boats.
Okay, all right, what do you say?
Look, I've been the guy that has been on one of those kayaks in the middle of the West Lake in the Everglades, and I've pedaled, and it was windy, and I'm paddling, and I went nowhere. Right, that was like one of my very first experiences, and I won't say the name of the kayak or the kayak company, whatever. But at that point, for me, it really wasn't fun, right? And
paddling that in the wind is not fun at all.
Well, but you look, when you don't know, right? Because you just know what you know. Now, thankfully, there is people like you guys that'll give you guys insight. Personally, I think for me, like right now, if you give me a kayak that'll literally fit inside the bed of my boat, of my truck, that I don't even have to have it over my tailgate wide, that gets me to somewhere, even if I wanted to go ahead and put some power assist, what's that little motor that you put in between the big speed or something, like just to give me, and I'll tell you, there's a market for that, right? Because like, for instance, like somebody has a sailboat, right? They'll use a small tender or a little inflatable just to get back to where they got to go. I think there's a market for a smaller, lighter, fast boat to go in and out to make it not as painful. Dude, I'm at the boat ramp filming, bro. I see these people struggling, and I make fun of them. You guys have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I've made. You see them trying to put it on, and then they weigh $120, and they're trying to get, and they can, and then they drop it, and then there's no. It's just, it's not practical, because at that point they got so many things on it that it doesn't even make it fun anymore, right? So,
but that's where I was leaning toward. I think a lot of companies throw so much stuff at the boats that, because say X guy that does a bass tournament and he's someone of notice, he has a following on YouTube, Instagram, and he has 8,000 trinkets on his boat. So now the companies are asking for more trinkets on those boats. So what happens is these companies keep throwing stuff on these boats, making them heavier. We went from a trend, which was really upsetting. We went from these small, stubby, fat boats that paddled horribly and couldn't handle any open water whatsoever, to, I think, everybody starting to realize that a 10-foot boat that's 40 inches wide paddles terribly, and it's not the right boat to be out in 30-mile-per-hour winds in a lake because you got caught in a storm and people are getting in trouble. So now we're leaning back toward the 13-foot boats again, because they track well, they paddle well, and we're kind of tapering down, with the exception of maybe a company here and there. We're tapering down to that 35, 37-inch range. You can still paddle it. Look, I have a Take 2. It paddles well. I'm not winning any competitions with it, and I'm not going 100 miles per hour. But it wasn't a motor failure. It was just an equipment failure. My what's it called, the Dacron rubbed on something, and I didn't see it, and I snapped the rudder cable. And I had a huge storm coming. I had wind. I had all the bad factors. I had lightning. I mean, everything you can think of. It was like Armageddon falling on me this summer. And I had to paddle this with a client, and he had a Hobie, and he sat there, and I kept up with him, paddling that take 2. I mean, I think the other problem is that people are scared of paddling, and I think a lot of people don't know how to paddle efficiently. That's major, and I see it all the time on my clients, where we got to go a half a mile, and it takes me like 30, 40 minutes to paddle all this, and it's because of the efficiency of my paddlers. So I have to sit there and kind of watch them and guide them. Look, feather it this way, move this way, and then we start picking up the clip, and then things start getting a little better. So I think it's a little mix of everything, but I think the boat industry needs to stay away from these like tiny little 10-foot boats. I think there's a niche for it. Like look, my Bite's 11.7. It's a small boat, and I put all my it's my client boats because it's a light boat. My clients can stand on it well, but I've been in some situations now where that boat has scared me, where I'm like, crap, this is not the boat that I want to be in with a client, and I got to rush back. Thank God for the Torpedo, where I can clip my clients and step on the gas, and I can make some headway with them. But
let me get Chad to answer 2 questions here. Chad, what do you think about the EPDL drive? Is it worth it? And what do you think about inflatables? Is that a thing of the past? I know there was a time where everybody wanted an inflatable, or everybody was coming up with an inflatable, but now that kind of quieted down a little bit. I mean,
so I'm gonna answer them backwards. I think the inflatable is the wave of the future. I think that when more time, effort, and energy is put into doing them right, there'll be that boat that Alfred was talking about. That boat he can throw in the back of his truck. It needs to be made in more chambers than the current boats. So, for example, that boat that Alfred's talking about, if it was made in 3 sections, kind of like the boat I was talking about before, and the front chamber could be deflated and folded on top of itself, you could put that in your truck. You get there, you only got 1 section to pump up. Takes about 30 seconds with the electric pump in your car, and you're off to the races. But the boat has to be designed to be an inflatable kayak. The problem is everybody's tried to make these inflatable kayaks that you can put back into a bag so that you can like fly away to a remote destination and romanticize it. The kayak that's going to do well as an inflatable is one that's made to be an inflatable, and it can come apart if you really need to, but that's not how it's designed. It's designed to be like what the Special Forces and Navy SEALs use in those rigid inflatable hulls. So it's just like that, but it's a tactical boat. So I think that inflatables are going to have a big position in the future, and I also feel like I'm going to be one of the people that helps make it happen. And then I'll go back and answer your other question by touching on what Alex said. We really have had a situation where the tail has wagged the dog in this industry, because the dealers asked for something, so then the companies tell the influencers to promote it, but the dealers are only basically saying, this is what the inexperienced angler that's coming in and asking me is for. So they're telling the companies to make it. So we've had very inexperienced people drive the products that have come out, and then the companies say, well, this sold really well, so we got to make more of it. Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you put that out there, and because you put it out there, it's what sold, and because it's what sold, it's what you put out there. I firmly believe we're going to get back to a Prowler 15, a Tarpon 160, and some of those boats down the road, because those are 2 of my favorite boats that ever existed. But it's also going to be that pendulum has to swing back in this direction. The kayak fishing industry right now is a weirdo adolescent teenager. And let me explain that. First, you start off as an infant, right? Then you get into be a toddler. Then you get into be like a middle-aged kid. Then you get into your teenage years, and you think you're an adult, but you're not. So like us as men, when we get our first truck, we're putting every freaking accessory you can put on there, bumpers, lift kits, the changing out the decal to match the chrome and all that. By the time you're like 25, 26 years old, you're like, yeah, screw that shit. I'm just getting something that works. And I think that that's where we're at in kayak fishing, is we're in that awkward teenage, adolescent into young adult phase, and we're about to move into the adult phase. So I do think that inflatables are going to be a big part of the future. We just have to have a fundamental shift in how we think about them, and don't think about them as these like little dainty, super lightweight, you got to stick it back in the bag boats. That being said, I'll now transition into answering your other question. When e-mountain bikes came out, the entire mountain bike industry freaked out. And they said, they're going to destroy our trails. They're not really mountain bikers. They're doing this and they're doing that. I was just at an outdoor economy conference in Cherokee, North Carolina. And there was a study that was done over the last 3 years where they figured out that e-bikes got more people into mountain biking, and that over 60% of the people that got e-bikes are now riding regular mountain bikes without the motor. And it was because they got into it, they got active enough, they got excited about it, but then they wanted better performance and they wanted, a real mountain bike. So I think that there is a niche for this EPDL. If I was to guess if Johnson Outdoors will recoup their investment for what they put into that boat to accomplish what they've come to market with, I don't think so. But that's just me personally. I'm going to say that now. I'm going to say, but I hope they do, because it's not good for the industry for a big company like Johnson Outdoors to go out on a limb and take a risk on something that's, that meets that criteria of advancement, and then it fail, because then it makes everybody else gun shy about trying. I think they would have done a better job by getting there incrementally, by doing a little bit more focus on the Sportsman series, introducing a more improved Sportsman series that integrates a lot of the Humminbird technology and some of that stuff, since they're under that Johnson Outdoors umbrella. But I've been wrong before, and I hope I'm wrong this time, because I really think it should succeed to get more innovation into the sport. And I think that it's one of those things that older people can use, people that are starting to get into that, having, lower limb issues and even, people that are disabled or whatever that need it. I just personally think it could have been done on a better platform, a more universal platform than the big water, and it would have had a broader application. So then it would have potentially been a better, hit a broader market right out of the gate. That being said, I understand what Johnson was trying to do was to go after the saltwater market and to go after this big water performance area, because they felt like they had the Sportsman area kind of covered. I don't think they quite anticipated the amount of backlash that they got from the people who already had boats saying, you should have made it work for me. And I know that's not practical because I'm a design guy. I know that's not practical because I'm a guy that does this. But the average consumer doesn't understand that. And I think they should have led with that. Hey, we worked hard to try to put this into the Sportsman series, but because of the wiring, the hull fitting, all these other things, we realized we had to come up with a completely new hull design. And I just feel like they left that question unanswered, and they allowed the vocal minority, let's face it, to come in and kind of shit on that product. And that didn't let it shine as bright as it should have shined. I appreciate and respect the innovation. I think that they skipped 2 steps though to get there, if that makes sense. I think that they had a really good thing going with the Sportsman series, and they should have just made an incremental improvement with that EPDL. But that being said, Johnson Outdoors has got the money to take that risk because they're a conglomerate, really big, company that owns, 30 brands. So if there's somebody that's going to take that chance, I'm glad to see it was Johnson Outdoors, because, Jackson Kayak tried it with the what was it? The East, what was that drive called?
Eve something.
Evolve or East. Yeah, I think it was like Evolve or something like that.
Yeah. Evolve was the Torpedo. Evolve was the Torpedo that went in the Hobie. But anyway, so Jackson's E-Drive it overheated. The battery capacity wasn't great. The battery capacity deteriorated. And it wasn't an assist. It was basically motor or pedal. And I think that I like the fact that Johnson Outdoors and, Old Town went in that direction to make it truly a pedal assist versus just one or the other, because I feel like if you're going to do that, just put the motor on the back and have the pedal drive in the front. So if you're going to do it, the way that they did it, I think they did it right for the way that they did it. I don't think it's going to catch on personally. I just, that's just me, but I hope it does.
Let me get Alfred's opinion here. What do you think, Alfred?
Well, I know about inflatables, so I'm a big fan of Hyperline inflatables. I think the kayak industry has done a lot of PVC type inflatables that has probably hurt 90% of the people who were interested in that because they ultimately fail. So they made that mistake cutting prices because they didn't want to, sticker shock the people. But for instance, I get calls every single day. Hey, do you fix PVC inflatable paddle boards or the paddle boards? Because it became a thing, and now they have them at the boat shows as decks and this and that. I did a series, and I'm doing a series on my channel called the Dinghy series. And the reason I did that series is I wanted to prove that on a little 9-foot all inflatable, I'm talking about soft bottom, everything inflatable, I can do and go just about anywhere and probably even more areas because what I'm in, and I can literally put it on a golf cart, I can put it in an RV, I can put it, you can store it, right? Now, the challenges that I've had, and this has happened as of late, is that, I use a 2.5 horsepower, a 4 horsepower, and I think I got another engine there, a 6 horsepower, right? I don't use them. I literally put a YouTube video on a buddy of mine's cleaning the carburetors. I'm a busy guy. Wait a month without starting it, carburetors are clogged up and dirty again. Now all of a sudden I gotta redo that, and it's a mission. So what did I do? When I was in the Annapolis Boat Show this weekend, I talked to one of the manufacturers that has I think it's called Propel, the electric motors. What is it? E-propulsion, right? So I looked at it, I said, all right. He goes, yeah, I can throw this in the water. I like the fact that I can get up and go fast. If somebody makes a kayak, like a kayak, smaller than my inflatable boat, all inflatable, that's smaller, that I can just basically put it in any car, which gives me the flexibility of going anywhere, everywhere, that's Hyperlon, I'm a buyer. Listen, I'm a buyer. Make it happen, Chad. Listen.
Wait, show it again, Chad. Show it again.
Okay, but if it's not Hyperlon, I don't want it. It has to be Hyperlon. If it's Hyperlon, I'll buy it. Okay, so you see, because if you look and you want to see the Dinghy series on my channel, I mean, you guys that haven't seen it, I've literally inflated. I use a Milwaukee inflatable blower. I open the valves. I just open the valves, and in 2 minutes, I'm already up and going. I close the valve real quick, and then I could use a foot pump to get me the PSI pressure that I want to make it hard, right? And then if I really trust it, because I have multiple chambers, like Chad said, I can lose a chamber here, and I'm not going to freak out. Now, what happens is when you have PVC, and then obviously there's failures because it's welded and it's heat welded and you're in a hot environment, it opens up those seams and that's when it fails. And then since it's welded on via heat, you can't really repair it as good as like if it's Hyperlon. Right now, I have my dinghy from my Dinghy series with a hole this big, right? It got a hole that big. I didn't know it was there, but now what I'm gonna do is I can easily fix it because it's glued. And I can put a patch, and I'm going to trust it because that's exactly how they're made, So I hope something like that hits the market. I hope it has multiple chambers. I hope I can take off the inside like I do on an inflatable, right? And then it just gives me the option of just rolling something up. And then if I want to put a small little electric motor on it, I have that option. And then I'm gonna move around like I did. I wanted to do. I was filming on my 18-foot rigid inflatable, and I had to go to shore. I was trying to get closer to shore to get a video and film all the migrant vessels that had come up to the Keys. and I was trying to get it with
Wait,
my
wait,
camera.
wait. You mean all the Cubans that are coming up with you?
Well, it just wasn't Cubans though, Alex. It was everybody. There is vessels from Haiti, from everywhere.
Oh, wow.
But the
The
point
line
is,
of Morocco.
I tried to get closer, and I didn't have a tool to get closer, right? At the moment, that was easy for me to have on my small boat, which is 18. At that point, that's what I was in. Go to closer to film, because for me that would have been awesome. That in itself would have been a lot of value for me, right? So if I have a boat that gives me that option and that flexibility to say, you know what, I'm gonna take a drive right now. It's not gonna be in my way if I just take this engine and this, rolled up. I don't need a bag. I listen, I got my dinghy, I don't bag it up. That's a waste of time for me. I deflate it, I roll it up, and I throw it where I gotta go, and I keep on moving. So, you can keep all your bag stuff.
Well,
People that put the stuff in the bag, they're not gonna use it.
Let me ask you this, Alfred, if you don't mind. What if it was made of that material or similar? It had 3 chambers. The bow and the stern are the same. The cockpit is different. You could take the cockpit out and put the bow and stern together and make a really short boat. But each of these chambers is 3 chambers. So basically, you now have a 9-chamber kayak. Here's the other thing. Underneath the seat of the kayak, there'll be 4 peel and stick patches. No more mixing crap up. You'll basically have 4 peel and stick patches that are 8 inches by 8 inches. You peel the back off of it. It activates the adhesive. You can stick it on wet. And then basically, you can do a bigger repair when you get back home, or you literally would never really have to repair. You know how Hypolite works in that it's not like PVC. You don't have to heat the surface up to get it to repair. And I just think that the industry's been so hyper focused on cheap, light, and readily available material that they followed the stand-up paddleboard industry. We need something bulletproof. We need something innovative. And you basically break it down into 3 parts, and it stacks with a strap that locks them together. You throw it in the back of the truck. You never got to try to fit it back in that little ass bag, but it still accomplishes what we're talking about. And again, if you damage 1 chamber out of 9, who gives a crap? You know what I'm saying?
How much would that boat cost?
Less than the rotomolded fishing kayaks on the market right now, but not
Okay,
as
that's a great price.
$1,500 to $1,900 basically.
Well,
Alfred, will you get on that? Will you feel safe on a kayak like that?
okay, look. Remember, if there's multiple chambers, right? You got 2 in the front, you got 2 in the back, you got on the sides, however he designs it, okay? I know once that divider, and for those that don't know, picture a tube, right? And then in here, there's a divider that holds air. This punctures, that's fine. This one's going to be fine on the other side. And you have multiple chambers. You can have 1 chamber down because, you prick it with something. Now, when we retube a boat, we use 866 thick Orca Hypalon. I challenge people, and I've showed it on my channel, we've run it over with an excursion. We've run it over, literally. And I've run it over so that people can understand how strong this stuff is. What I like about Hypalon is that you can literally fix it. You can mess it up. You can put a big hole. You can fix it. There's nothing more disturbing for someone to say, I just spent all this money on this PVC something, and because I'm in a hotter environment, it's failed on me, and now I can't fix it. And then you have somebody that'll try to fix it, and then they get frustrated, and then their issue, and then they're like, oh, this is all garbage. And that's why they call them deflatables and stuff like that. But if you put something that's quality, that has multiple chambers, I'll go. I think the smaller aspect of it is what I like, because I want to be in and out. If I wanted a bigger inflatable, I go bigger. Like right now, my dinghy series, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to go hard bottom now. I've proven the point that I already did everything what I did with the small part. And my audience loves it because they're seeing me going everywhere on that little boat. Now, I want to try electric. I want to see how long I can go with maybe 2 of those propulsion batteries or whatever that thing is, and then go. I don't want to be worried, oh, do I have to hook this up? Listen, I want to pull it off, pull it in. You know what I'm saying? Like when I gas up in the middle of my dinghy series videos, I literally, guys, I'll pause it, boom, pause real quick, put some gas in my engine, keep it moving. Or if I wanted to go further distances, I put a whole big tank in my dinghy. The problem there is that already becomes work. I'm picking up something else and it's heavy, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I want it to be easy to achieve what I'm trying to do. And I think most people that are going to spend money on something like that are going to see it for multiple purposes. Hey, I'm going to go on this weekend to the Keys. I want to take a little boat just to explore while I'm here. Can the kayak fit? Oh, we don't have that much space. Yeah, but this one will work, you know? So if I have options to use it for multiple things, I'm a buyer.
So let me ask you this, Alfred.
Go ahead, because I'm going to jump down, but I appreciate the time, guys.
A modular boat that I just talked about, right? Hypalon's actually been discontinued by DuPont.
Yes.
Yeah, now it's under or CSM, which is chlorohydrogenated. Yeah, it's basically easier to work with as well because it's got enough rigidity to it that you can make templates and you can seam it. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. But the question is, do you like the concept of a modular boat that you could basically add sections to make it longer, to make it shorter? You could take the cockpit out, make it shorter, paddle it with a cooler or just a frame seat.
And if it's innovative, Chad, if I like to have options, right? Like when I'm at shows, right? Sometimes you see boats that are like, hey, we're going out with the boys right now. We're just going to go ahead and have it set up for fishing. This section comes up. This section comes up. We can walk around the entire boat to fish. Oh, but this weekend we're going to have the family, the kids. We want some seating. So I like the modular aspect of it. If you can, if it doesn't take me a lot of time, I want the basic, the basic function of the boat to don't disturb that. All the other intricate things that you want to do, that's fine. But the boat, the basics, I can go in and out, get on the water, trust it with the basics, and then I want to add stuff to it. Beautiful. If I want to make it bigger, I want to make it more comfortable. I want to add a seating area. It doesn't matter to me. I think where people make the mistakes is like, bro, just be less is more. Like everybody wants to reinvent, and I see everybody going and spending this, and I'm gonna get 6 engines. You know, when people ask me what boat should I buy because I got this, and I go, listen, buy the boat you're gonna use. Don't buy the boat that your friend has. Buy the boat or buy something that you're going to use the most. Because the minute it becomes a burden or an inconvenience for you, it sits in a garage, it sits at a marina, it sits somewhere and it's not being used. And that's where I think people make huge mistakes in all these toys that they buy. They buy stuff that they were enamored, not because they wanted it. They got enamored because they saw everybody else with it. And they forget why and what's going to make it. The small boats, there's no better memory you can make with your kids on a small boat. As long as you take them out on a good day and you understand the weather and where you're at, man, you're gonna be close to them to the point that they're gonna have conversations with you, and there'll be things that they'll never forget. And I think people lose that. They're like, oh well, I got this 40-foot boat or this best thing, and all of a sudden it's like it's sitting there and it's not even used because it's either too heavy. I've probably literally wiped out everybody that goes to Black Point Marina with kayaks because they're like, oh shit, Alfred's filming on the other side, So, but listen, I thank you guys. I hope you guys continue doing that. I'm really excited about the conversation. I love hearing about what kayakers are doing, and hopefully I get to meet you guys, Chad and Alex, in the future. And some of these other events.
Sure, you've seen me a million times.
Well, I'm going to be down there
at Black Point.
I'm going to be down there for almost 2 months this winter, so we'll hook up for sure.
Yeah. We'll be in contact. Alex, thanks for the invite, bro.
Source the boat and take us fishing.
Hey, Chad, I'll be your test dummy whenever you make that boat. Let me know.
We need to talk. We need to talk offline. You're like one of 5 people that's ever mentioned Hypalon out loud in my life. So you're already.
Listen, just watch some of my dinghy videos. Look at my dinghy series on my channel. It's under my name. That'll be my channel name, Alfred Montaner, and just type in dinghy series. And
Yeah.
and the reason I say, like, when I'm at the boat ramp and I see somebody with a kayak or a small boat with an old motor. You know what I say? I say whatever it takes. And those people are out on the water while the other people that are not out on the water because they're just not, because they don't have 4 friends to go out with them on that 50-foot boat. You know what I'm saying? Because they can't bring it in by themselves. They can't, bring it off the trailer by themselves. So I think the priorities eventually are going to change, and people are going to start realizing, you know what? Those guys were right. This might make sense for me. And I don't mind being an X, Y, and Z. Look at what Alex is saying. He's like, look, I got this boat and it works. It's not the best, it's not but it works for what he's doing, and it's proven for him. So I think where people they want the next shiny shit. Oh, this is shinier. I want that now. I want this now. And then it doesn't get any, it gets you nowhere.
In kayak fishing, I call that roof jewelry. The guys that buy the kayak just to drive around with it on top of their truck, and if you took the straps off, that would be like a suntan line there. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, there's legitimately people in our sport that all they do is spend time on social media bitching about what other people are doing. And I just laugh because I'm like, you're bitching about me doing it while you're not doing it. You know what I'm saying? And so people ask me all the time, what boat do you get? I say, get the best boat that you can afford right now. Because if you save up for a kayak, you can't buy yesterday. You can't buy last week. You can't buy the day before yesterday. Time is the only thing we can't go back no matter how much money we make. So every day you don't go fishing is a day you don't get to go fishing.
Father Time is undefeated. All right, guys. Hey, you guys have a good one. Thanks for letting me in the show.
Bye, Alfred.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
joining us.
But I have to agree, which is I think what I was kind of touching on the previously, that I think a lot of these companies are throwing all this stuff and all this marketing and all this I hate to call it junk, but all this like aftermarket stuff and so much. It's almost overwhelming. I see all these companies from Jackson, from Native to Hobie. It overwhelms me, and then I see the boat in person because I get clients that bring these overvalued boats, and it's pointless. And it takes 5 years for them to get in on the water, and I'm sitting there with my boat just watching them just put all these trinkets and put this boat together because it's an erector set of just gear that that comes from the boat, and then they see my boat, and Alex can attest. I'm simple. There's a crate in the back, a couple rods, and underseat storage, and done. I don't everything's very organized, everything's very mitigated, but my boat's stripped. And when they see me out there in the water and they're getting fouled up and tangled up in their boats, they start reevaluating the whole situation, and then they start looking at my boat, and I'm like, oh, I get why your boat is so empty. I was like, well, this is what I've been aiming at. And I think a lot of these companies need to go back to the roots and start from the ground up and have these boats like that are clean, that don't come with all these 1,000 trinkets and 1,000 things on them, and then just escalate they exaggerate the prices when a boat. I mean, I think prices in kayaks. I mean, obviously with time and the way the economics are going,
I'll argue with you on that one, and I'll tell you why. I started kayak fishing in 1996. The cheapest out of I grew up paddling canoes and pirogues and things like that, so I've been paddle crafting my whole life. But I got my first roto-molded kayak in 96. And I was very blessed to be able to meet some of the influential people who started Sit on Top kayaks from Ocean Kayak. And I helped design the Prowler 15, the original, before they shrunk it down and made the 13. And that Prowler 15, and then ultimately the 13, the Trident, and the Tarpon 160 are some of the best paddling craft that ever existed. The problem is the pendulum swung. But here's where I will argue with you about the prices. Same argument that I make for forward-facing sonar and structure scan and all that stuff. People complain about how expensive forward-facing sonar is, it actually just made structure scan half price. So really, when these new things come out, it makes the old technology more affordable because it's not the latest, greatest thing. So in 1996, when I got into kayak fishing, my first kayak was $799. Within 2 years, the third kayak I bought, no, I'm sorry, the first kayak I bought was $100. That's a whole different story. The first one I went to a store and bought was $799. It was an Ocean Kayak Drifter. Okay.
Oh, great boat too.
Yeah. Within 2 years, I had exceeded the $1,000 price point by buying a Tarpon 140 that was $1,099 with the angler kit and the tracks and and all that stuff, because I had moved over and started working with Wilderness Systems. Now, I will say I did not buy that boat. Once I got involved with design and people realized my background is in aeronautical engineering and all that other stuff, and I just play a fat redneck on TV and all that, then I started bringing some value to proposition to the table and started getting boats, as a trade-off for design and for marketing and that kind of stuff. But when I first started making premium fishing kayaks, what they would really do is they would make a wreck version of it. They would stick an angler logo on it and put 2 flush mount rod holders in it and include an anchor bag and up the price $300. So those boats were $1,200, $1,300. Today, 30 years later, next month, there are more kayaks under $1,000 than there was, not even adjusted for inflation, more kayaks literally under $1,000 than there was when I started. In addition to that, the Bonafide RS-117, for example, that's $1,100, is more advanced than the fishing kayak I fished out of the first 20 years I fished in kayaks, because a lot of the design has trickled down from the RS or from the SS series to where they don't have to amortize the cost of the mold for the handles and the side handles and all that kind of stuff. So actually, these more expensive kayaks actually make the mid-tier and lower tier kayaks more affordable. And so that's where I say I disagree, because when people only focus on the top tier and think that that's the only kayak that they consider, then yeah, they're getting out of.
That's the problem. That's where I was trying to get at. I think a lot of people think that you have to go top tier. So a lot of these companies focus so much on these top tier kayaks, and then the bottom tier kayaks where I fall in. I don't have a use for a top tier kayak. For what I do here in South Florida and even bass fishing. I mean, I did a bunch of KBFs. I don't need a top tier kayak. I just need a kayak that works for me. Everybody has their mold. Everybody has their fit. Alex, I was talking to him, why do you like the PDO? And, I like asking these questions the same way when I get other clients that show up with their boats. Why do you like this boat? What is it that intrigues you about it? What got you into this boat, and what do you not like? And, but I think everybody just wants to go top tier. And I think there's not a lot of concentration in that middle range where you're not absolutely top, but you're not at the bottom either, where it fits the bill, where it's in the 1,000 change. I'm not saying that kayak should be $400 because I paid sticker price for my brand new Titan, and I think it was like $1,200, and this was like 2009, I think it was, or 2008. I paid a grand and change for it for a brand new boat, and I could have gone with the Hobie, but I went with the Prowler because I was able to stand on it perfectly fine. I pulled it and it just paddled really well. And that was when the hot ticket down here in South Florida was going offshore. That's when we were kind of revolutionizing things. Kayak Wars was going on, and I needed a boat that can handle. I won Kayak Wars. I developed a team to South Florida, and we revolutionized Kayak War. We caused all kinds of grief, but that can be a sidebar.
I was right there with you. I was in Virginia Beach, and we were neck and neck trying anyway. So. Yeah, kayak
going at it, but that drove me into that middle range boat. I could have gone to the higher tier. I could have gone to the pro angler. I had an opportunity at a pro angler, and I had friends with the pro angler. And I think honestly, out of the Hobie line, I think the Outback's probably the best boat they have. Because I've been on the Revo, I've been on the Outback, and I've been on the pro angler. And I think the Outback is the most versatile, but it falls in the middle range again if you look at it. It's in the middle range, and I think a lot of these companies need to focus on the middle range where these boats don't come overly exasperated with a bunch of stuff on it, and it gives the angler an opportunity to put all their stuff that they want. Because I've seen it a million times, and I think I was telling Alex, I see a lot of these YouTubers and a lot of these influencers, they buy the top of the line boat, and when you start looking at the video, the boat's stripped down. They basically rearrange the entire boat to their liking. So why buy a high-end boat just to say that you have the best of the boat? I don't understand. That's been my quorum for a while.
I'll give you a quick analogy that I've been using for people. People come up to me and say, "Why do you have all that crap on your kayak?" And my normal response is, because I can, right? Because I live in both worlds. I like the advanced stuff. I like pushing the envelope because I know what it does to the middle and bottom line when it's all said and done, because I understand how that trickle down effect works. But like, here's what I think we have going on right now in this industry. You know, Alex, back when you and I were younger, guys used to work on stuff. Men used to make stuff, used to have a half broke down car in their garage or in the backyard that they were rebuilding. They had a shed that they were rebuilding. They had a project going on at all times. And I think that is something that we instinctually long for, but I think we've gotten away from building shit. You mentioned the erector set, Lincoln logs, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, we just don't do that. We don't do that.
About my boat.
So I think, to be honest with you, and I've made this analogy in a couple of other videos, I think that the fishing kayak is the modern day hot rod for the guy that doesn't know how to change a carburetor or do this or do that. And it's a tinkerer thing. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because I'm just going to say it. But a lot of northern guys, once the water gets hard and it's frozen over, the more they can rig and do stuff on their boats in their garage, it like keeps them in the game, if you will, when they're out of the game. And so I see it as like it's almost like a DIY thing that emerged into hobbyists, right? And you used to be able to buy all your parts from companies or build your own parts. And then stuff like Mopar came along where you could get all these aftermarket things, but they were ready to go and just plug and play. And I think Yak Attack and Railblazer and Ram are the Mopar of kayak fishing, but you can just configure it and reconfigure it and keep reconfiguring it. So I just think that there's something innate in men that we build things. And because we've gotten away from building things, these project overland trailers and kayaks and all of these things like that have become that thing that, 30 years ago, everybody had a project they were working on the side. But because they didn't post about it on Instagram or Facebook, it didn't matter. It was like you and three buddies standing around doing it. But now there's social currency in, look at my new thing. Check out my new thing. And don't get me wrong, I live and make a living in that space, and I fully understand it. But I try to show both ends of the spectrum. Here's a super advanced kayak, and here's me out here. Like the last 10-pounder I caught, I even said after I held it up, I was like, I didn't have a depth finder, I didn't have a motor, I didn't have a power pole, and I'm sponsored by all three of those companies. Here I am showing you don't need it. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree, and I'm not disagreeing. There's a place for those items, the fish finders, just everything that you need. I think there's a use for it, but these companies are again, I hate to throw this out there, but I think a lot of these companies are so steered by the influencers and what they want and what they need, and this is what's important to me. So I'm a company, and I'm going to design a boat just off of these like 4 or 5 individuals. So
See,
this boat
I'll disagree with that too. I think the influencers are driven by the companies, because trust me, I get pressure to do it, and I think that there's, especially in those early years when you're just about to make a living doing it, but you can't quite. And then an opportunity comes along with the company and they say, hey, we'll write you a check, but here's what we need you to do. Oh man. And then they're off to the races. I think that for the most part, that most of the pressure comes from the dealers telling the companies what they think the consumers want. Then they make it, and then they kind of force it down the throats of the influencers. I don't think
it's the dealer then, because I've been trying to put my thumb on what direction or where all this insight's coming from and where these boats are being designed. So here's the problem: we don't have dealers down here in South Florida. There's like one or two, and it's Nautical Ventures, and that's kind of it when it comes to like a big dealer. And then there's tiny little dealers, but they're not influential.
I'm not blaming the dealer. What I'm saying is the consumer is coming in and asking for things, and the dealer's conveying that to the manufacturers, and the manufacturers answering what they think is the demand. The problem is you have an uneducated consumer coming in and asking for what they think they want because they've seen this influencer peddling it. And then the next thing you know, you've created this artificial demand that didn't exist. And then because it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy then, because this guy promotes it, it's what the guys go ask for. Because it's what the guys ask for, it's what the dealers tell. So for example, some company comes out with this thing, and now the dealer tells every other brand, we got to have this. And you'll see this in this industry probably till the end of time. This is not a very innovative industry. This is an incrementally innovative industry. What happens is one innovation comes out, and then every company has their version of it and copies it. And then they don't run ahead. They just step up to the line. So if this company goes here, the rest of the companies go and stop. Then one company will kind of step out a little bit, and then the rest of them will until they're even. And we're due for a revolution. But I think
what I was going to ask next. When is it going to happen? Because the last time I remember seeing something, it was the chair, from sitting in a having a soggy ass for a decade, and then we went to the seat, and then Jackson came knocking on the door. I went for a while, and then Jackson came. I know they're not the first ones to develop, but Jackson kind of really pushed the envelope with the chair, and then everybody kind of followed suit. So that was the last time. We're going on a decade already of that, and there hasn't been a new revolution. It's been everybody following, which is where I agreed with you in your State of the Union, where it's every company following each other's tails and trying to see who's going to one up and see how much can we pack into a kayak. And I think we're going backwards in the kayak industry as far as like evolution. Like, we need to move forward. We're just throwing stuff on the kayaks and see what sticks, where the mud sticks. And I think there's so much room for kayaks and boat design. And now that's why I brought up the engine. I think the engine, Torpedoes and the XI3s and the XI5s, I think this is revolutionary in the industry. I think companies need to embrace this like completely, and the design a boat that will basically get on plane and push the limit, get farther ranges, really like push the limit of these motors and still have the stabilities. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of glad that the companies are starting to get away from this like stubby, tiny little boats and starting to drag out and actually get to 13-foot boats, where I think it's the middle ground. They're fast, they paddle well, they can handle a little better open water. So I'm glad we're back in that direction.
We had about a 10-year divergence, right? So the industry went really hard towards advanced, stable, nobody cares about performance, over to super cheap, like not so stable, but just cheap, right? And we left that big gap in the middle like you're talking about. I think what's happening now is that middle is getting filled in more than you realize. For example, I know for a fact that there's major discussions going on at Bonafide with the price point of the Power 129 being $1,899 and the SS 127 is right behind it at $1,700. That gap needs to get bigger. Well, they're not going to make the Power more expensive. They're probably going to make the SS 127 less expensive, and they're going to kind of fill that gap between it and the RS 117. I think the same thing's happening with Old Town with like the Topwater series. The same thing's happening with New Canoe with like the Flint and some of those boats. But what's not happened is there's not really vocal people. So we listen to the vocal minority, which is the people who have the biggest platforms, and it makes us think that the industry is running off of this cliff over here. But I see companies like Crescent coming in and filling in the gaps. If you look at Jackson,
I was about to bring them up. There's a dealer here that's always pushing Crescents, and I've looked at the boat. I've seen the hull, I've seen the lines in the boat, and I think it's a great middle ground boat. It really is. For the price and for the boat you're getting and the way it handles and paddles, it's a great boat. I'm surprised they haven't taken off more than they are.
Well, it's because I think they're trying to own the space they're in and not try to go too big too fast. And I've talked to James about that, and that's generally his philosophy. But if you look at companies like, for example, Jackson. Jackson was paddling watercraft when they came out. The Kusa, the Cuda, even the Big Tuna was designed as a tandem boat that you could paddle. There is not a real great paddling boat in their lineup right now. Even with as good as the Take Two paddles for a tandem, and it paddles okay for as big as it is, where is Jackson's paddle boat? They were built on drinking the Kool-Aid of being a Jacksonite and all that other stuff. And now there's not a single performance-oriented boat in their lineup. Not a single one.
And that's been my quorum with Jackson for a while now. I mean, I've been with Jackson now. When Drew Gregory started with them, I literally probably started with them a couple weeks after Drew jumped in on the team. And I test ran the Cuda 14 down in Key West, and that was the first time I was on that boat. It was still a prototype. It still hadn't even hit market, and I was running around on that boat, and I fell in love with it and immediately grabbed it. And I regret selling it. It was probably one of my biggest regrets selling that boat, but it was a great paddling boat. The secondary stability was kind of flaky, but the boat, I went from, and you can ask Alex, I went from Flamingo to Robbie's on that boat. That's over. If you make a straight line, it's 47 miles. So I did more than 47 because I went out to the 9 mile. We went all over the place. I probably paddled in 3 days like 70 something miles. And that boat, I was never fatigued. That boat paddled and handled perfectly. But I moved over to the big rig because it was the only option I had. And then after that, I went from 2000. I just actually rearranged them because I won't get rid of them at this moment. But I have a 2015 OG big rig, and I never bought a boat to 2022. So look at that gap. So from 2015 to 22, I never bought another boat from Jackson because there was just nothing fit my bill. Either they were too short or there were boats being produced for someone's want. So we were going to produce a boat for my need. Like, let's say I'm the engineer, I'm going to build the boat for me. And it really doesn't fit the bill for anybody else. And the boat didn't make any sales and then eventually fell off the cliff. But
yeah. If they were a football team right now, they would only have linebackers and halfbacks. They don't even have like a tight end. They don't have a quarterback.
No.
They don't have.
They barely have a center to hike the ball.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of problems, and I think another problem with the industry as well too. I think is that I think quality is going down, and they want to push these products out. And I feel personally, this is just from my observation. I don't know. I haven't really felt or like put my feelers out and try to get. It's just what I see on forums every once in a while, and but I think quality is going down. And it's just about quantity, how much product we can push, and the quality keeps going down. And now we got cracking issues and all kinds of other issues that these boats never had. I remember my Cuda 14 to this day, wherever she's at right now, I'm pretty sure there's zero cracks and zero issues with that boat. My Prowler never cracked, never nothing. There was no issue. And man, did I abuse these boats. I was always standing. I was always moving around on those boats, and I never had issues. And now every boat that I buy cracks. Ask Alex what I had to, this is what we were talking about, the whole tinkering and sitting in the backyard. Ask Alex what I had to do to my Take Two. 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, a little less than a 2 week span, I cracked my Take Two from standing and moving around on it. So I had to go to the old brain and my old past of building stuff out, and I built a false deck on that boat, and it's actually pretty comfortable. I wish every boat now is kind of an open deck where I can kind of build this false floor with HDPE, and
yes, I want to ask Chad a question. Chad, what do you think about what he was saying? All these cracks, all these issues with kayaks breaking and Hobie having issues. I'm gonna bring this up, but I'm getting messages all the time from Hobie customers not with their warranty not being honored by Hobie. they saying that recently Hobie changed that they would only replace a hole if it's within 1 year of buying that kayak. And to me, it's like Hobie doesn't care
Industry
anymore.
standard.
No. The owner will replace it as long as if they warranty 3 years, they'll replace the hole. Just the first owner though. But Hobie now, original owner would only replace a hole if it's within 1 year. Everything else is welded repairs, and it's like they don't care from what I'm hearing. And there's a lot of
here's the
I think
problem.
it has to do with COVID actually. Go ahead.
A big part of the problem was is when there were supply chain constraints. I know of at least a couple of companies that started evaluating how much resin reduction they could get away with. So, for example, if you do a 10% reduction in resin being what the plastic is when it's in a pellet form, and to manufacture that boat, it's called shot weight. If you reduce the shot weight by 5%, for example, out of 100 boats, you can get 5 boats because you took 5%. And
You're breaking up. Chad, did we lose you? Your connection is very bad. I think we lost Chad. Let me. I think what he was saying was that the company found a way to reduce plastic and made it. Okay, are you back, Chad?
Now,
Wait.
can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can hear you guys. Yeah, so I know that there was a lot of exploration in trying to see if we could make the boats lighter and thinner, but still durable. And I think that a few companies overshot the mark. And I think we're starting to see that in the hull cracking in certain brands more than others. The other thing that I think happens, and Alex, you probably had your ear to the rail enough to validate what I'm about to say, is when the word gets out on the street that a manufacturer is no longer honoring a warranty based on what they said they would before, what happens is your customer base gets educated on, okay, so if you're only going to warranty my hull up to a year, there's a lot of people out there that'll go out of their way to make sure that they crack their hull before that year so that they get that new replacement, because they don't want to be like 18 months or 16 months or 14 months and then find a crack. So then what they do is they start looking for cracks, or and I've literally heard it with my own ears, and I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? At a boat ramp, a guy said to another guy, like, hey, if they're going to turn the damn warranty down to like 1 year, I'm going to make damn sure that thing cracks before the year so I can get me a new hull. And it perpetuates that problem.
The abuse.
It creates an abuse of the system. I'll give you an example. I'm a Lean Six Sigma theory of constraints guy, and I watched this case study where Walmart realized that if they don't take back certain products, the consumer is going to come in and buy a new one, take it home, put the old one in the box, and bring it back with the new receipt. And when you run a slippery slope when you play the warranty game, especially if you adjust it to where then it brings a lot of attention to it. And I think the problem was with Hobie is that the word got out. So then people started looking to make things a problem. They may have had a tiny crack under the foot of their seat that would have lasted another 3 years. But because they heard about this crack, they took their seat foot off and saw this tiny little crack. So then they got in the boat and jumped up and down on the seat till it cracked enough that they could get a warranty. So it exasperates and compounds the situation when you get this viral or semi-viral thread that goes through a community. So I don't necessarily think that the boats are less reliable and that quality control has gone down. I think some companies took a risk on making more boats by using less resin, and that risk didn't pay off, and it's biting them in the ass.
So why not have, which is what I haven't understood, why not put these boats in the hands of people that are actually going to stress these boats out, that are actually going to put it through, obviously not going to go and purposely break these boats, but are actually going to fish these boats hard. They're going to stress them out. They're going to put them in adverse elements, hot, cold, big waves, current, just wear these boats down and actually get actual data and feedback. So instead, I see a lot of these companies as well too, and I'm not saying it happens across the board, but I see it happen every once in a while. They'll send it to someone or a C-lister, but they kind of make themselves look like an A-lister, and they use the boat on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm quality controlling the boat for 2 days a week, and now I'm going to have intel on the boat. I'm going to give you feedback on the boat. I've only used the boat 4 times in a month, so I'm going to give you feedback versus someone, I'm not saying me, but someone like in our little group right now, where they're going to use the boat 5 to 6 times a day. 5 to 6 times a week. And they're going to put that boat in 100 different scenarios that they can go back and be like, well, the seat did this, this broke, this is not working, this doesn't paddle well. Like, get actual data that's going to make a difference later on, not just for the boat you're developing, but for future molds that you're going to make, where you can take this data and be like, well, these certain people put the boat through these rigors and these situations, and this is where they failed. So let's make something. Obviously, you're never going to make something bulletproof. Look, listen, my motto is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So when I'm out on the water, I always try to carry 2 things, but things are always going to fail. Seat buckles are going to break. Something's always going to happen. You're going to drop a boat, something. But I think the quality in the boats, at least what I've taken in the market, and I'm on the water a lot, and I've noticed that quality just keeps going down. Things that never failed on me are constantly failing on me. I have to go to the machine shop in my backyard and now develop something that I shouldn't be tinkering with. That's an hour of my day. As much as I like tinkering, but that's an hour of my day from coming home from guiding. I start my day at 3 a.m. Something breaks. I have to look. I'll give you a perfect example. I had aluminum seat latches snapped the other day on my clients. She leaned back to kind of get comfortable on the seat, and she just literally almost did a cartwheel off the seat. That's a liability to me. It's a huge liability. She could have gotten hurt. So obviously she was cool about it. She just laughed it out, and I helped her up. And then luckily I carry paracord with me, and I made a quick patch where she can kind of keep the seat in a comfortable spot, and we continue about their day. But now I had to come home and kind of reevaluate the situation. Do I go and buy more seat latches and run the risk, or do I just develop something completely different and just, to make it pretty as much as fail safe as possible? So these little things, these little nuances that these boat companies are making, it gets irritating after a while, that you're paying this money and you want the product to work. Obviously, like I said, there's going to be failures. There's always that moment that, you can't quality control every last piece of inventory that comes out of your factory. But if you're having issues and you're not addressing them, I think that's a problem, I think, in the companies. And I think that the quality control and the R&D that gets put out, I don't think sometimes it gets put in the right hands and the right info is getting back. Obviously, not every company is the same, but I've seen a few companies that'll push out a product, and I'm like, who quality controlled this? When you're looking at the forums and there's a laundry list of problems that are coming out. And I hate to throw Jackson out there. I've been with them I'm losing count. I'm like one of the OGs, like with Chris Funk and when Drew Gregory started. And I met Brooks and Jameson, all these guys I'm friends with because they were literally coming into this world, and I was brought in. So I've watched products move forward, and I hate to throw like the NAR. What happened there? Like it was a product, and then it just collapsed. And honestly, my theory was, because it's only a theory, that the quality control wasn't put behind it, and the pressure on that boat was not.
I'll tell you the answer to that question. And guys, I got to answer this question, and then I got to bounce. But Alex, I can answer the question. There wasn't enough prototyping time. There wasn't a commitment to doing multiple prototypes, and the time frame to get that boat to market was so compressed that they just didn't put the time in it that they needed to. Jameson, and I've even talked to Richard Penny, one of the reps, and when he brought it to the boat ramp for me to try it out, and I, within 5 minutes of being in the boat, had 10 complaints. And they were like, yeah, unfortunately, it's too far. We're too close to the launch to change anything now. And I'm like, what pro staffers prototype tested this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I talked to Jameson. He's like, we just didn't have the time. And so I think with this rapid demand for innovation, new boat, we used to make 2 or 3 prototypes at Confluence. And I used to give them to team members because I was the pro staff director for the first fishing team there. But I would give them to my hardcore pro staffers with the directive UTF, use till failure. That was the directive. Now what's happening is the pendulum has swung to where, you get these guys that may be newer. They may have 10,000 Instagram followers where the other guy's got 3,000 Instagram followers. And so the 10,000 Instagram follower guy gets the boat to test it. And because he's so happy that he's getting to prototype test, he doesn't want to say anything bad. So he goes out and he tries it, uses it 1 or 2 times, and then tells the company, oh my God, it's amazing, blah, 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 and takes some pictures and then starts raving about it. Instead of going out there and running 2 or 3 rivers with it, dragging it through the woods, banging it around, like basically trying to use it till failure. But it's also not their fault because the companies aren't given enough time for a prototype mold. Then we used to build the plug, make the prototype mold, make a prototype boat, go test it. Okay, here's a problem. Fix these 2 things, make another plug, make another prototype mold, go test that. Then once you were done with that phase 2 testing, then you could build out the final SolidWorks model, get the final mold cut, and then take that thing to market. And so 1, it's been the increased demand on innovation. And 2, it's been, and I hate to throw people under the bus specifically, but I'll just talk to the company you've been talking to. When they first started, the seat frames were made in South Carolina and in Tennessee. Now the seat frames are Chinese, right? So when you get into these American boats that have all these imported parts on them, you got a really nice vehicle with crappy tires and crappy engine and core components like the seat is the thing that the angler interacts with. It's got to be good. It's really the thing you touch the most on that boat. And so I think that because frame seats are expensive, everybody started looking for places to cheapen up that thing. And, it's bad, I know Bonafide doesn't do it, but most major manufacturers have started importing a significant number of their piece parts, right? And still say that the boat is made or assembled in the USA when, 30-40% of the parts are imported. And you kind of get a shipment of those in, and then you're like, oh man, these are garbage, or these pieces are garbage, but you're getting them in right about the time you got to start fulfilling dealer orders and stuff, and you don't have any time to adjust, So that's been the biggest problem.
I couldn't disagree with you anymore. I mean, that's kind of what I've noticed, and it irritates. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that I'm a guru or I'm like an expert, but I've been around in the industry for a while, and I'm pretty observant. I kind of stay low key and kind of behind the scene, and I just watch everything going evolve. But eventually, I have to voice myself because it's my business. So I want this industry to keep growing.
I have an idea. Next time I'm gonna do a review on a kayak. I'm gonna bring you along so you could stress test it. Actually, Shad, are you gonna be here? Like, we should do something together.
You want to bass fish? I can take you bass fishing since you like bass fishing.
We're definitely gonna hook up when I get there. We're gonna do some saltwater stuff and some bass fishing. So, yeah. Look, guys, look.
Water fish, let me know.
What's that?
You want a saltwater fish? You let me know. I'm
coming for a couple months just to do it. People forgot I actually got my start as a guide in Corpus Christi saltwater fishing, then moved to Virginia Beach, did a bunch of saltwater fishing. I've caught tons of tarpon from the kayak, tons of big monster redfish, gator trout, skipjack. I mean, all kinds of.
A different topic to sidebar. I don't understand where the saltwater scene disappeared to. It literally just faded. Well, it's all about freshwater.
I'll be honest with you, and people can hate me if you want to for saying this. Guys like me came in and over promoted the freshwater to the point that we made more noise, and the saltwater, I don't think it necessarily disappeared. It just didn't grow as fast. And there was this long honeymoon of kayak fishing where saltwater was the only way. And literally, I was sitting there one day in Virginia Beach, and I went, how come nobody promotes kayak bass fishing? It's freaking awesome. And my buddy goes, you should. And looked up on his phone how to buy the website, and the URL kayak bass fishing was available. So he bought it, and then I transferred everything to my name the next day. So, but I thought the same thing. Yes, we're going to make bass fishing big, but I thought it was actually going to accelerate the saltwater growth, right? I thought it was going to really, make that blow up even more. I just think that there's so much more freshwater fishermen in the world.
Say there really is.
Because the way the country is, most people live in the middle.
Yes, so it's just and there's so many places right down the road from Billy Bob or Bobby Sue to where they can throw a kayak in the water that it's easy. And then I think to a certain extent, saltwater fishing gets associated with offshore and current and some of that stuff. So it's a little more intimidating to your average angler. And so I think those two things together kind of created that.
I get it from my clients. They're all scared. How far are we going to go? How deep is it? I'm like, dude, we're going to be fishing in ankle deep water. So don't worry about it. You're good.
Well, listen, guys, this has been awesome. Alex, thanks for having me. Alex, we're going to definitely hook up when I get down there. And I appreciate you guys. So I literally have to jump off of here and do dinner.
Thank you for stopping in, bro. And we'll stay in touch.
Doing the good work, man. You're champion the kayak industry. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night.
Bye, Chad.
Good night, guys.
Later.
Good night, everybody. Oh, wait, I'm Alex.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for staying here over an hour and 45 minutes. This was fun. First time. I had to I tried to moderate, but I didn't do such a good job.
There's a lot of hot topics to be touched, so I think we just kind of segued from Chad's state of the union kind of topic, and I think we kind of segued into other branches that kind of relate to what he was mentioning, and it kind of just keeps evolving. There's a lot going on. It's a big industry.
There's a lot because kayaks now, is like Alfred said, is pretty much a boat. So it's kind of like everything is coming together. So
there's a lot of directions and a lot of things coming from which way, and they all kind of meet in the middle in a melting pot. But there's a lot of segues and a lot of it's a big umbrella that kind of branches out in all kinds of different directions. So there's a lot to talk about. But for the most part, I think kayak industry needs to grow a pair and kind of pick a direction and kind of evolve. It's time. I think everybody agreed. It's been a while since we haven't seen the next big innovation. It all seems kind of redundant as far as like products and stuff that are coming out. I think companies are kind of tiptoeing around it. Like I said, I think the Bonafide kind of aimed and took a shot over the bow over all the companies. So hopefully these companies kind of get their act together and build boats where they're great for paddling or
I think the future is what Chad said, something modular that you could ship in a little box and you could transport it like that without breaking your back. We'll see how if we get there.
We'll see.
Oh, it's late, people.
Yep.
9:49. We gotta go, and we got families. My wife just tried to open the door. That's the sign. It's time to call it.
I can hear pace, and my wife wants to go to sleep. Alex, thank you for having me, and Chad again. Hopefully he sees that part. But thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And, hopefully we gotta go to
Black Point and crush the cheese show one of these days.
I see him all the time. I don't think he recognizes me. When he realizes who I am, he'll understand. I see him all the time.
Yeah, that's why we should like troll two big chicken. So Fred comes out and say hi to him.
I'll just troll him on my camera and kind of video the shit show.
Yeah,
we should him on Instagram.
Yeah. All right,
Alex, take it easy, man.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.